Insert disc 2.
Okay, Aaron. We've had several requests to do a show about paranormal activity.
I thought you were going to say we've had requests to retire and commit suicide.
Well, we've had those requests too.
But we're not honoring those yet.
Not yet.
All right.
I know that you are I don't know if people are really fans of the paranormal or believers in the paranormal. I don't know what the correct sort of descriptor is.
I'm a man who walks in shadows that other places that other men fear to tread.
Okay. What I'd like you to do is think about all of the paranormal experiences that you've heard about, read about, experienced. Mm-hmm. And I want you to give me your top 3 symptoms or experiences symptoms. Symptoms.
I got the highs from a ghost. That's what I'm looking at.
Top 3 incidences of paranormal activity.
Now look at that. One of our chatters do it all the time. So, I have been on several formal ghost hunts and then some informal ones. Even with me and Leroy have went on some. I don't. My interest has waned over the years.
Which is odd because your girlfriend is
Really, hers has waned to a certain degree.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, it's been overexposed, hasn't it? And it's almost made into a big joke. If you we get on Amazon Prime, and one of my favorite things to do is watch these local ghost groups on there, their shows, and they're always the worst. But they're funny bad. Mm-hmm. There's a group of, these guys are wrestlers that go out and hunt ghosts. That's a real show.
Really?
Yeah, there's a group of people that are like, there's a hot chick. It's the hot chick ghost hunter. Then there's a couple of chicks. Then there's the church goers. You got all different types. But I have seen some creepy stuff. And I have had one unexplained issue. Now, I will go over some things that have happened to me personally. The top 3. In no particular order, because they're all terrifying. One day, I was working at Davaroni's Pizza. I don't know if I've ever told you this story. I was washing dishes, okay? And the store at Davaroni, this is back in 90, let's say. The back door to Davaroni's opens up on the railroad tracks that go through Hurricane.
Right.
And I was back there washing dishes. So it was near the end of the shift. And a train went by. And as I was washing dishes, I got a real weird, sickly feeling, all right? And I got so ill, I said, listen, I think I'm about to go home. I'm dizzy. I'm really messed up. And the boss was like, well, go ahead and go. We're almost closed. And I've always thought that maybe the train had something on it that was leaking. Mm-hmm. That's the guess. So I didn't go home. I went to my buddy's house to hang out for a while. And on my way home, which is up by Standard Food, I was on that road.
Virginia Avenue.
As I topped the hill of Standard Food, there's a cemetery.
Oh, yeah.
And walking past the cemetery, I saw an old woman who was half skeleton, and her flesh was literally melting off as she was walking. Now that was pretty creepy. I have the feeling that I was under the influence of some sort of chemical, is my guess. But I went right home.
That is a creepy area over there.
It is creepy.
Yeah.
Another thing, I used to live on Mud Mountain, as you know.
But others might not know
Mud Mountain is the only dirt road that's a city street in Charleston, West Virginia. It's up on a mountain. It's in the city, but it's not really. It's in the woods behind it and stuff. But it's beside the interstate. But it's hard to explain. You've seen it. But it's isolated. It's the only house on there. And so I would hear weird stuff all the time, and I would not like that. And so what I would always do is make sure that I had noise going at all times in the house. There was always a radio on, a television on. I never, ever had silence in the house.
What about like a white noise machine?
No, that's too creepy. You ever see Poltergeist?
Air conditioner?
Air
Window
conditioner would
unit?
be on, sure. Mm-hmm. So I was up there one night, and I heard, and you could hear people that would sometimes wander up Mud Mountain at night, usually hoodlums or kids. But I heard a woman's voice just murmuring, "Help me," through the wall of my room, because the bedroom sat over a creek, literally, because this house was elevated, and there was woods, and I could hear this creepy voice asking for help. And it took a while, but I got enough gumption to go out and look. And with I didn't have a gun or anything, 'cause I don't like guns, but I did have a sword. Mm-hmm. So I went out in a bathrobe, a sword, and a flashlight.
If there was ever a picture I wish existed, You in the frame of the door of Mud Mountain with the sword and the flashlight in the bathroom.
Let me tell you something. But for the longest time, I used my old high school graduation robe. It was a bathrobe. And one time, a raccoon moved into the house, and it would drive me nuts. And there was one time I was out fighting this raccoon with my sword and a broom handle, and I had I'd heard that raccoons didn't like music, so I had a boom box sitting out there. It was blasting music. This was like 3 a.m, and I was fighting this thing because he was going across the rafters of my porch, and I fell down. And so here I thought to myself, this is how they're going to find me. I'm gonna be laying on the ground wearing only a graduation robe with a broom, a sword, and like Scorpions music playing on this radio because I slipped on the ice out there.
Man.
So yeah, there was a lot of. If we did a top 3 stupid things I've done, we could do 20,000 of these shows. But anyway, that was pretty scary. Of course, there was no one there. The scariest thing in terms of ghost hunting, and I saw some pretty weird stuff, but the scariest things, we were investigating a place. It's called the Whipple Country Store.
Company store.
Company store. Have you ever been to it?
I read an article about it.
It's an old, in West Virginia, we used to have lots of coal mines, and so they would pay the employees in company script. All right, that shtick. Company script was garbage, and so you have to use that script in the company store. And these company stores lined all these valleys back in the day. Now, as the years have went on, there are fewer and fewer, and there's only a couple left. And one of the most famous ones is the Whipple store. And we were doing a ghost hunt there with Teresa's ghost group, Huntington Paranormal. And it was me, and in one of the rooms there was this dude, and Teresa's dad, and me. And it was the closet. They had this long walk-in closet at the Whipple store because allegedly scores of people were killed in this store. And it was usually people trying to, and God knows how many rapes and everything else. I mean, this is hardcore.
Yeah. Right? Well, some of those coal mining towns were, rough areas.
And the people that ran them they were like evil dudes. But anyway, we were in this room, and we were asking for, we were in there we're doing EVPs, right? Electronic voice phenomenon, if that's your bag. And we were in there, and all 3 of us, the guy was asking questions, And basically, we asked for a sign. Can you make any noise? Because nothing had happened. It was, it wasn't that creepy, but it was a big, long, empty closet. It wasn't empty; it had stuff in it. And right when we said that, there was sort of a bang, and you could see the shelf move. That was pretty creepy, just due to the timing. Now, do I know what that was? I don't know, but it was that.
Did you immediately vacate the area?
Well, we looked at each other and then we left.
Yeah.
Now
that would have been my move as well.
I didn't see anything else creepy that night, and I've been to some other places. Anchorage, we've been to that, which is up in Marietta, Ohio. Very crazy building. Teresa's group runs out of a building in Dot that's real super creepy. I've been to a lot of creepy buildings, but I don't think I've seen anything. I mean, it's creepy to be in there. Another place we've been to is the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. That is absolutely creepy. The stuff you see on TV, if you've ever watched any programs, ghost programs, that's the creepiest place I've ever been.
We went there on our honeymoon.
Really?
Yeah.
After knowing you for a while, I think you should have checked in. You went into the asylum for your honeymoon?
It's kind of a funny story. So, we got married and we went to our honeymoon at Stonewall Resort, up in Weston, the same place that this place is. And the next morning was Sunday morning. And we're like, let's see what the great town of Weston has to offer us on Sunday morning. So there was the Glass Museum, the West Virginia Glass Museum.
Yes.
And the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. So we were just walking around, and we see all these people gathered by the door. And so we'll gather over there with them. And they start taking us through, and the people that are gathered there are giving us these weird looks. And finally, the tour guide says, "Who are you guys?" And we're like, "We're just here." We saw these people. I'm like, "This was a paid for tour you guys are on right now. You guys need to leave." And so we were like in the lunatic asylum, so we had to post haste get out of there. But
do you recall where you were at when you? Do you recall how long were you on the tour before you had to go?
It was only like 5 or 10 minutes.
Did you actually get to leave the very nice furnished area to go?
Oh yeah, like with the little area that we were in was all like the paint was peeling everywhere on the walls and stuff.
Trans-Allegheny is real unique because they restored some of the building to the way it looked in its prime. Gorgeous, because when you think when you hear the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, you think of like these people chained to the wall, somebody beating them with a whip,
right?
they actually tried to help a lot of these people.
Mm-hmm.
And the Trans-Allegheny predates the Civil War. So if you look at parts of the building, you'll see the state bird and the state flower of Virginia, because when it was built, West Virginia was still part of Virginia, which is interesting. And so you can imagine the amount of history in a building like that.
We actually went in through a side entrance too, and so I didn't get to see that. I'd like to see it. We'll go back there one day.
The creepy thing about Trans-Allegheny, it's one of these places, if you go into a lot of these old buildings, the creepiest parts of them for me are these real long halls, because they're so long that that you think, okay, I can see, and especially if there's a light at the end though. There's a long hall in the Trans-Allegheny with like a porthole light in it, that to the outside, because you're in Weston, so you can see street lights and stuff to it. But what that means is you can see that light. So if something goes between you and the light, you see it.
Oh.
And you're always paranoid that something's going to go between that light.
Yeah.
We went in there with a group, and you would never see anyone else. I mean, and you would all be in the same wing, because they would say, okay, let's do or the same floor. It's so massive, and we went. The part that got us the most was the youth ward, where a lot of bad stuff had went down, and it was late, 3 a.m. when we went there. It was cold, and we both were like, well, we're done. And Teresa does not. She's inflappable, and she was just like, "Well, it's time to go." We've also been to Moundsville and and wow, that's another place it's so much bad stuff. Moundsville is the West Virginia State Penitentiary, and it's an old penitentiary, and it's another place that's just super duper creepy.
So we got the the old haunted penitentiary, the old haunted company store. Basically, our state has a history of people being downtrodden and forever haunting the earth.
And then, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, especially since next weekend is the Mothman Festival. And I'm going to try to shoot some footage, and I might even go live a little bit if I can figure out how to do it.
That'd be great.
But the Point Pleasant's a creepy town. They've got the TNT area out there where we used to, stockpile World War II weaponry and whatnot. And so there's a lot of creepy stuff that goes on out there. If you've ever been up to Braxton County, that area where the Braxton County Monster is, it's a very secluded, and this is with the interstate. So you can imagine what it was like in the 50s.
Yeah.
It was like absolutely no one got up there. So I tell Teresa all the time, we're very fortunate to be in the lap of, if you're into this sort of paranormal stuff, this is like one of the perfect places to be, because there's so much of it around us, and then there's also like stuff like I think it's like Ohio Grassman and Bigfoot.
That leads me into my next question.
All right.
Okay. I want to know your top 3. What is the name for people like the Ohio Grassman or Mothman?
Well,
what do you call those?
Cryptozoological.
Yeah, let's go with that. What are your top 3 favorite cryptozoological creatures?
Well, in no particular order. I mean, let's face it. Mothman is up there. He's very interesting, and it's unusual.
So what is interesting about Mothman to you personally?
He showed up at a weird time. It's unexplained. A lot of people saw him, and things that surrounded him were weird. The Men in Black showed up. The bridge collapsed. A lot of weird stuff happened. And Point Pleasant's just is a very odd, weird place. Duncan Stiles just mentioned it on the chat. Some places give off like a strange vibe, and Point Pleasant is a weird town. It just is weird. It's at the point where rivers converge. I think that's part of it. That gives it a strange feeling when you're there. So Mothman would be probably top of the list, just because, I mean, again, this is a guy no one's seen anything legitimately since the 60s.
It's not like Bigfoot where people are still seeing.
No, I mean, I'm sure you could talk to somebody. It's like, yeah, I just saw Mothman. It was awesome. It's not like it was when they first saw him. Bigfoot. I was a kid, I was a real big fan. But I mean, it's been, that's the whole thing. It's all like ghosts. It's been convoluted, and I think by now, much like another thing I loved a lot, that's Monster. But I just can't buy it anymore. They should have found something. I'm not buying it.
When the surgeon that took that famous photo on his deathbed said, "Yeah, that was a hoax. That was that was a real death blow." Yeah.
So I think the Green Monster, the Braxton County Monster, is an interesting case. Again, like the Mothman, he came. They saw him one time, and he was gone.
And you said the Braxton County Monster is not the politically correct name for him anymore, right? Well, he prefers to be known as the Green Monster.
Well, he's got several names, but basically, it's not a monster. I mean, for everyone sort of agrees it's probably an alien. So if that's your bag, there's something there for you. because he's never been seen anywhere else. So I would say he's up there. I'm trying to think what a third thing would be. That would be something that people might have heard of. There's a very unusual story. This goes into the realm of aliens of a farm in Kentucky, and this was back in the 30s or 40s or maybe in the 50s, where these these farms, you know how these places are. They're out in the sticks. There's no
very
highway.
Isolated.
And these guys have a festival. I wish I could remember the name of it, but these aliens showed up one night and just basically terrorized this family of farmers.
Really?
And there was guns pulled and antics and aliens on the roof. Just crazy time. I've always been real partial to that one. Another one I'll bring up since we're talking about aliens. Again, we may be leaving the paranormal area, but I always thought
there's kind of an overlap, I think.
If you're familiar with the Barney and Betty Hill encounter.
Is it abduction?
It was. That was a missing time element to it, and it was sort of a very famous case. I got an autographed copy of Stan Friedman's book on the subject. It was pretty interesting. But I always thought that was a pretty thought-provoking case. It was sort of the first it sort of kicked off the abduction craze, to a certain degree. So I like that. I can see myself getting more into the ET version of stuff now that I came to paranormal. I feel bad too because I always liked paranormal stuff and Ouija boards and tarot. I used to do that stuff. It was a lot of fun. And because I think at the time it was just something, no one else had did it, no one had heard of it. But now, one thing about the internet, like any gimmick you thought you had, like 50 billion other people have had it.
Oh yeah.
I knew a chick, I remember in school, like the kind of creepy girls, the exotic girls, they were on the Wicca, right? Wicca, ooh, they're Wiccans, right? Well, now it's just like, this is what it's not. I'm not saying anything bad about Wicca. That's whatever you toot your horn, but
it turns into that psychic fair situation that you went to,
right? When you can log on to, even back in the day, you could get Netscape up. It's like, hey, look, this is an automated HTML tarot reader. Well, I shot that in the bud. I'm done. So it's hard. There's not anything that really surprises me that much anymore.
Okay, I got one final question for you.
All right.
Okay, I want you to rank these in the order of probability. Okay, ESP, ghosts that can communicate from beyond the grave, aliens that have visited Earth, any kind of cryptozoological phenomenon.
Well, you threw me off on the last one because that any kind.
Okay, let's say
people didn't believe that they were tigers or there were big cats in the Himalayas.
Right. Okay. Let me narrow it down.
Yeah.
Let's say the existence of Bigfoot and or the Loch Ness monster and or Chupacabra.
It's funny he just mentioned Chupacabra. I would put so ghosts that can communicate, ESP. Cryptozoology or alien
that have visited Earth.
I'm going to put in last place. I'm going to put Bigfoot and Loch Ness monster.
Okay.
I just can't imagine that we wouldn't have found something. I know, and this is not the disparaging one that is into that, because I know next week when I go to the Mothman, there's going to be a ton of people there. They're Bigfoot experts, and I'm not. But and I'm not saying I'm right, but I would say that's the least likely. I would say. Ghosts that could communicate with people would be the next least likely. I would put ESP as the next, as we're getting into the more likely stuff, and in the most likely, I would say aliens that have visited the Earth. And I say that because statistically, given the size of the universe,
the vast nature of the cosmos.
That's right. It would not be out of the realm of possibility that other life existed and had come here or here now. Considering how powerful they would probably be just to get here, they could probably be in this room and we wouldn't even know. Right? And if you ever listened to or read any of the stuff from Michio Kaku's book, or Michio Kaku's many books, he's sort of a futurist. He's also a mega genius. He will tell you that a lot of the stuff that happens is based purely on the amount of energy you can generate. You could, could you teleport? Yes. Could you warp speed through space? Yes, but it depends on the amount of energy you can generate, whether you could do that stuff or not. And I would wager that advanced races can generate an amount of energy that we would never imagine. So I would say that's the top. Then ESP, which I believe there's a possibility that there's something there. I'm not going to say that I'm hopping on the Richard C. Hoagland bandwagon with.
Who was the guy on Carson that bent the spoons?
You're talking Kreskin.
Kreskin.
That's clearly that was.
No. I'm not talking. Kreskin was Johnny Carson.
No, what is that guy's name? I know you're talking about. What is his name?
I don't know. That's why I asked.
I don't remember.
Okay.
But I don't put any credence in that. But I think remote viewing, that sort of thing, there may be something to it. It's hard to say. The government had studied it. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, so I would rank them most likely aliens visited Earth. Next most likely ESP. Next most likely ghost communication with the dead. And then lastly, I would say the Loch Ness Monster and the Bigfoot.
And I'd like to open that up to anybody that's listening right now.
Uri Geller.
Uri Geller, yeah. What are your? How do you rank those four? Please leave us a comment in the YouTube.
Where do you put them?
Boy, I'd say probably. That's a good question. I think I'd put ESP first as most likely, and then aliens that have visited the planet. Yeah, and I'd have to go ghosts and then Bigfoot.
I'm sort of surprised because I know you're sort of a religious guy,
mm-hmm.
and it's been my impression that people that are pretty religious are more likely to believe that you could communicate with the dead.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I think that if you could communicate with the dead, they'd make it easier, and there would be more solid proof of it by this time with all of the technology that we have. I feel like I'm not ruling anything out, but I think that there's a higher possibility that aliens have visited our planet than the other.
Fair enough. Very fascinating. And while I'm thinking about it, if you are into this sort of thing, my girlfriend runs Teresa's Haunted History of the Tri-State, which I'll link up the webpage if you haven't seen it. But it's she's number one with a bullet, and her audience is unbelievably large, and she is very thorough and very good and does not fall for crap. So and a lot of her stuff's history based. So if you're into this sort of thing and you want to find out more about where we live in terms of what's going on around here, I will link you up because she's the best. I'm not just saying that because she's my girl.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this week's Insert Disc 2. Maybe next week we'll do another call-in show. We'll see you next time.
Adios.